The crash and first contact, the alarm screamed through the cramped cockpit of the Pioneer's Edge as Dr. Sarah Chen fought to maintain control of her failing ship. Red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow while the navigation systems flickered between readings that made no sense. One moment they showed her approaching the planned survey coordinates. The next, they displayed impossible data suggesting she was somewhere completely different. "Come on, hold together," Sarah muttered, her hands dancing across the emergency controls. She had been alone on this mission for 6 months, conducting routine xenobiological surveys in the Outer Rim territories. The work was solitary but rewarding, each new world offering fresh mysteries to unravel. This planet, designated XB447, was supposed to be a simple mineral assessment. Nothing in the preliminary scans had suggested anything unusual. The ship's hull groaned under stress as the atmosphere thickened around them. Sarah's training kicked in, years of preparation for exactly this scenario. She redirected all available power to the emergency landing systems, knowing she had perhaps minutes before complete system failure. The planet's surface rushed toward her, a vast expanse of golden desert broken by strange, crystalline formations that caught and reflected the alien sun's light in impossible ways. Impact came with a bone-jarring crash that threw Sarah against her restraints. The ship skidded across the desert floor, carving a deep furrow in the sand before finally coming to rest against a cluster of translucent spires. For several minutes, Sarah remained motionless, listening to the settling groans of twisted metal and the gradual fade of electrical systems dying around her. When she finally unbuckled herself and stood, pain shot through her left shoulder, but nothing felt broken. The main cabin was a disaster of scattered equipment and emergency supplies, but the hull remained intact. Sarah moved methodically through her crash protocol, checking life support systems, inventorying supplies, and assessing the damage. The communications array was completely destroyed, the main drive beyond repair, but the emergency beacon still functioned. She activated it, knowing that rescue could be weeks or even months away. The first thing that struck her when she opened the airlock was the silence. Not the empty quiet of a dead world, but something deeper, more profound. It felt like the entire planet was holding its breath. The air was breathable, though thin, with a metallic taste that made her nose wrinkle. The temperature was hot, but manageable, and the gravity slightly lighter than Earth normal. Sarah established her first camp in the shadow of her damaged ship, using salvaged materials to create a basic shelter. As she worked, she became increasingly aware of the landscape around her. The crystalline formations weren't random as she had first thought. They followed patterns, geometric arrangements that seemed almost deliberate. Some rose from the sand like glass trees, their surfaces smooth and perfect. Others formed spiraling towers that hummed softly in the wind, producing haunting melodies that seemed to resonate in her bones. On her second day, Sarah began to notice the patterns in the sand itself. During the night, the wind should have erased any surface markings, but instead, she found complex geometric designs etched into the desert floor around her camp. Perfect circles, intricate spirals, and angular patterns that reminded her of mathematical equations. When she tried to photograph them, her camera malfunctioned, displaying only static. The patterns changed each day, becoming more elaborate, more purposeful. Sarah documented everything in her written log, since electronic recording devices failed consistently when pointed at the mysterious formations. She began to suspect that the patterns were some form of communication, though she had no idea who or what might be creating them. her scientific instruments detected unusual energy readings throughout the area. The crystalline formations pulsed with a type of energy that didn't match any known spectrum. When she attempted to take samples, her cutting tools simply passed through the crystal as if it weren't there. Yet she could clearly see and feel the solid structures. It was as if they existed in a slightly different phase of reality. On the fourth day, Sarah realized she was being watched. The sensation came gradually, a growing awareness that something was observing her every movement. She would catch glimpses of motion in her peripheral vision, but when she turned to look directly, nothing was there. The feeling was not threatening, more like the attention of a curious child studying an interesting insect. Her attempts to locate the source of observation proved fruitless. Heat sensors detected nothing, motion detectors remained silent, and visual scanning revealed only the endless expanse of desert and crystal formations. Yet the feeling persisted, growing stronger each day. Sometimes she would speak aloud to her invisible watchers, describing her activities and her scientific observations. She had no way of knowing if they understood her, but the act of communication felt important. The breakthrough came on the seventh day when Sarah discovered that her watchers were not invisible at all. They were simply existing in a spectrum of light that human eyes couldn't normally perceive. By accident, she noticed that when she viewed the area through her damaged helmet visor, which had developed a strange polarizing effect from the crash, she could see them clearly. They were beings of pure energy, flowing like liquid light across the desert. Their forms were constantly shifting, sometimes appearing as geometric patterns, other times as flowing ribbons of luminescence. They moved with purpose and intelligence, and Sarah counted at least a dozen of them surrounding her camp at any given time. When she observed them directly through her modified visor, they seemed to become more solid, more defined, as if her attention was helping them maintain their form. Sarah attempted various forms of communication. She used hand gestures, drew mathematical symbols in the sand, and even tried reproducing some of the geometric patterns she had observed. The energy beings responded by creating more complex patterns around her camp, and she began to see a crude form of dialogue developing. They would create a pattern, she would respond with her own, and they would modify theirs in return. The real breakthrough came when Sarah realized that the beings were not just trying to communicate with her, but were actively teaching her. Each day, the patterns became more sophisticated, building on previous lessons. They were showing her mathematical concepts, physical principles, and what appeared to be star charts. The implications were staggering. These were not primitive energy beings, but an advanced civilization that had been studying her as much as she had been studying them. As the days passed, Sarah's equipment continued to malfunction in increasingly specific ways. Devices that should have been working perfectly would fail when she tried to use them for certain tasks, while functioning normally for others. It took her time to realize that the malfunctions weren't random. The energy beings were selectively interfering with her technology, preventing her from documenting certain discoveries while allowing others to proceed normally. The pattern of interference began to make sense when Sarah discovered the first wreckage site. While exploring a valley between two crystal formations, she found the scattered remains of what had once been a human spacecraft. The metal was corroded beyond recognition, but the basic configuration was unmistakable. This was human technology, but far older than her own ship. The style of construction suggested it was from the early exploration era, perhaps 50 years ago. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized the implications. The energy beings had been interacting with humans for decades, possibly longer. Her crash was not the first, and she was not the first human to find herself stranded on this world. The question was, what had happened to the others? She spent the next several days searching the area and found evidence of at least 3 other crash sites, each separated by years based on the degree of corrosion and the technology styles. At each site, the same patterns were evident. The crashes had occurred in the same general area, the wreckage was scattered in similar ways, and the energy beings had clearly been present for each incident. The most disturbing discovery was the absence of human remains. At each crash site, Sarah found evidence of human habitation, temporary shelters, and abandoned supplies, but no bodies. The humans had survived the crashes, lived for some time on the planet, and then simply vanished. The energy beings, it seemed, had been collecting human visitors for half a century. Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. Were the other humans still alive somewhere? Had they been transported to another location? Or had something more sinister occurred? The energy beings continued their daily attempts at communication. But now Sarah viewed them with a mixture of fascination and fear. They had been studying humanity for decades, and she was simply the latest specimen in their collection. The realization that she was part of a larger pattern changed everything. This was not a random encounter with alien life, but a deliberate and ongoing interaction between 2 species. The energy beings had been watching, learning, and possibly selecting humans for reasons she didn't yet understand. The question was whether Sarah could uncover their true purpose before she joined the fate of those who had come before her. As she prepared for sleep on her 14th day on the planet, Sarah made a decision that would change the course of human history. Instead of waiting passively for rescue or for the energy beings to make their next move, she would take the initiative. Tomorrow, she would attempt to find the other humans, discover what the energy beings truly wanted, and uncover the secret that had been hidden in mission briefings for over 50 years. The desert night closed around her camp as the energy beings continued their eternal dance among the crystal formations. Sarah lay in her shelter, her mind racing with possibilities and plans. She had survived the crash, decoded the alien communication attempts, and discovered the truth about the planet's history. Now came the real challenge, learning what the energy beings wanted with humanity, and whether their intentions were benevolent or something far more dangerous. The wind carried strange melodies through the crystal formations, and Sarah drifted off to sleep with the sound of alien mathematics singing in her ears. Tomorrow would bring answers, but tonight she was content to rest as the first human to truly understand that she was not alone in the universe, and that first contact had been happening for far longer than anyone had realized. The truth revealed dawn broke over the crystal desert with colors that had no names in human language. Sarah Chen woke to find that the energy beings had created their most complex pattern yet during the night. A spiral of geometric shapes stretched for nearly 1 kilometer around her camp, each symbol more intricate than anything she had seen before. But this time, something was different. The patterns seemed to be pointing in a specific direction toward a cluster of the tallest crystal. Formations on the horizon, Sarah packed her essential supplies and followed the indicated path. The energy beings accompanied her, flowing alongside like escorts made of living light. As she walked, she noticed that the desert itself was changing around her. The sand beneath her feet became firmer, more structured, as if the ground was adapting to make her journey easier. The crystal formations grew taller and more numerous, creating a natural corridor that led deeper into the planet's mysteries. After several hours of walking, Sarah reached what could only be described as a city. The crystal formations here were clearly artificial, arranged in perfect geometric patterns that rose hundreds of meters into the alien sky. But this was not an abandoned ruin. The entire city pulsed with energy, and Sarah could see the beings moving through the crystalline structures like blood through veins. This was their home, their civilization, and it was very much alive. At the center of the city, Sarah found something that made her heart race. A perfectly preserved human base camp, complete with advanced technology that was decades ahead of anything she had seen. The equipment was still functional, powered by the same energy that flowed through the crystal city. Most importantly, there were people. 3 humans emerged from the central structure, moving with the fluid grace of those who had learned to work in harmony with the energy beings. The leader was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of decades. She introduced herself as Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist who had crashed on this world 23 years ago. With her were Marcus Webb, an engineer who had arrived 15 years ago, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a physicist from 7 years past. All 3 were healthy, vital, and clearly thriving in this alien environment. "Welcome, Dr. Chen," Alina said with a warm smile. "We've been expecting you." Sarah stared in shock. "Expecting me? How did you know my name?" "The Luminari told us," Alina replied, gesturing to the energy beings that continued to flow around them. "That's what we call our hosts. They've been watching human space exploration for over a century, waiting for the right candidates." Marcus stepped forward, his enthusiasm evident. "They don't just collect random humans, Sarah. They specifically seek out scientists, explorers, people with the curiosity and adaptability to serve as bridges between our species. Every crash was carefully orchestrated to bring together the right individuals." "But why?" Sarah asked. "What do they want from us?" Yuki answered, her voice filled with wonder. "They want to teach us. The Luminari are ancient beyond our comprehension, but they've reached a point in their evolution where they can no longer grow alone. They need fresh perspectives, new ways of thinking. They've been studying dozens of species across the galaxy, and humans are the first they've found with the right combination of creativity, adaptability, and curiosity." Alina led Sarah deeper into the Crystal City, showing her wonders that challenged everything she thought she knew about physics and biology. The Luminari had developed technology that could manipulate matter at the quantum level, create energy from pure thought, and travel between dimensions. But for all their advancement, they had become trapped by their own perfection. "They've become too organized, too predictable," Alina explained. "Their society functions without conflict, without the chaos that drives innovation. They've been observing human behavior for decades, fascinated by our ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems. They want to learn from us as much as we can learn from them." The truth was even more remarkable than Sarah had imagined. The Luminari had been secretly guiding human technological development for centuries, providing subtle nudges that led to breakthrough discoveries. Every major advance in human science had been influenced by their gentle intervention. They had been preparing humanity for eventual contact, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. "But why the secrecy?" Sarah asked. "Why not make open contact?" Marcus laughed. "Have you met humans? We're not exactly known for our calm, rational responses to new situations. The Luminari knew that open contact would likely result in fear, military response, and the destruction of any chance for peaceful cooperation. They needed to find humans who could serve as ambassadors, people who could help bridge the gap between our species. Over the following days, Sarah learned the full scope of the luminaries' plan. They had been preparing for a gradual reveal to humanity, starting with small groups of carefully selected individuals. The crashed explorers would return to human space as ambassadors, carrying with them proof of alien civilization and the promise of unprecedented technological advancement. But the relationship was not one-sided. The Luminari had already begun incorporating human innovations into their own society. They had learned about human art, music, and literature, finding in these expressions of creativity something they had lost in their own evolution. They had discovered that human emotions, rather than being a weakness, were actually a source of strength and innovation. Sarah found herself at the center of this cultural exchange. The Luminari were particularly interested in her scientific methodology, the way she approached problems with both logic and intuition. They began teaching her their own methods of research, showing her how to perceive reality at levels beyond normal human senses. The process was transformative. Sarah discovered that with the right training, humans could learn to perceive the energy patterns that the Luminari used for communication. She could see the flow of quantum energy through matter, understand the mathematical principles that governed the Crystal City, and even begin to communicate directly with the Luminari through pure thought. This is what they've been waiting for, Alina explained during one of their evening discussions. Humans who can truly understand their perspective while maintaining our own unique viewpoint. You're not just learning their science, Sarah. You're helping to create a new form of consciousness that combines the best of both species. The implications were staggering. This was not just first contact, but the beginning of a new phase in human evolution. The Luminari were offering to share their knowledge freely, to help humanity advance beyond the limitations that had constrained them for millennia. In return, they wanted humans to help them rediscover the joy of discovery, the thrill of the unknown. Sarah spent weeks working with the Luminari, learning their methods and sharing her own insights. She discovered that her crash had not been random at all. The Luminari had been observing her work for years, watching her approach to xenobiology and her unique ability to adapt to new environments. They had specifically selected her to join the group of human ambassadors. The time came for a decision. The Luminari offered Sarah the same choice they had given the others: return to human space as an ambassador, carrying proof of alien civilization, and the promise of unprecedented cooperation, or remain on the planet to continue the work of building bridges between the species. Sarah chose to stay. She had found her life's purpose in this alien desert, working to create a future where humans and Luminari could explore the universe together. She established a permanent research station using a combination of human and Luminari technology to create a communication hub that could reach across the galaxy. Her first message to Earth was carefully crafted, designed to prepare humanity for the revelation that would change everything. She sent detailed scientific data, proof of the Luminaries' existence, and most importantly, evidence of their peaceful intentions. She knew that the response would be mixed, that many humans would react with fear or suspicion. But she also knew that enough would respond with wonder and curiosity to make cooperation possible. The desert planet became the first embassy between human and Luminari civilizations. Sarah trained a new generation of ambassadors, humans who could serve as bridges between the species. She learned to think in patterns of energy and light, to perceive reality through senses that evolution had never intended. She became something new, something that was both human and more than human. Years passed, and the first official human delegation arrived on the planet. Sarah stood beside Alina, Marcus, and Yuki as they welcomed the newcomers to a world that had become their home. The visitors were scientists, diplomats, and explorers, carefully chosen for their ability to adapt to new realities. "Welcome to the beginning of a new age," Sarah told them, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had helped create that age. "Everything you thought you knew about the universe is about to change." The Luminari emerged from their crystal city, their forms now stable and defined through years of interaction with human consciousness. They had learned to maintain physical form through willpower and shared perception, becoming something that was both energy and matter, alien and familiar. The formal first contact ceremony took place in the great crystal amphitheater at the heart of the city. Human and Luminori representatives stood together, sharing knowledge and perspectives that would reshape both civilizations. Sarah translated between languages of words and patterns of energy, her mind serving as the bridge between two completely different forms of consciousness. In the years that followed, the partnership between humans and Luminari would lead to technological advances that seemed like magic. Faster than light travel, unlimited clean energy, and the ability to terraform worlds with pure thought. But, more than that, it would lead to a new understanding of what it meant to be intelligent, to be alive, to be part of something greater than oneself. Sarah Chen had survived a crash in an alien desert and discovered that she was not alone in the universe. But more than that, she had learned that first contact was not a single moment of revelation, but an ongoing process of growth and understanding. She had become the first human to truly communicate with an alien intelligence, and in doing so, had helped create a future where both species could thrive together among the stars. The desert wind still sang through the crystal formations, but now it carried new melodies, harmonies created by the interaction of human creativity and Luminari wisdom. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was no longer exploring it alone. They had found their partners in the cosmic dance, and together they would discover what lay beyond the farthest star.